I'm Dr. Brad Hafford, archaeologist at the University of Pennsylvania, and today on Artifactually Speaking, I'm doing something a little different. I'm going to try to make some ancient recipes. I'm here in the Florida Keys with my brother Jeff. Hello. He's a printmaker and an artist, and he likes gardening and cooking, so that's why I'm going to enlist his aid to try to make some of these ancient dishes. Now, the actual recipes have been designed by a friend of mine and fellow YouTuber, Arim Havsho, and he has been researching these for many years now. I think he started in 2019, and his cookbook's finally going to come out this year in 2025. It's called Table of Gods, and I highly recommend it. I'm trying some of his preview recipes now, though. He sent me some that they sound really great. They're actually based on what we know about the materials that the ancient Sumerians would have had, the Assyrians. He goes through time. So he starts at a very early one. We're going to try that, the Sumerian lunch today. That one dates back to about 3200 BCE. And then we're going to also make a kind of dessert that's a bit later at around 1700 BCE. Now, they didn't really write down recipes as we know them today, but we do get a few things that tell us ingredients, not necessarily amounts. So he's had to try to work with them. So now we've got the result of that, and we're just going to try to follow his recipe, see what we come up with. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah, all right.
So what are we doing first?
Well, we're going to make our dessert first, which is, you have his name's
Zimri Lim. Yeah.
Zimri Lim's favorite dessert. And from about 1750 BCE or thereabout. So what our main ingredients here are going to be date syrup, but we have a stand-in because we're unfortunately unable to source date syrup. It is agave syrup, dark agave syrup. Honey, flour, butter to make the dough. To make the filling, we're going to use pistachios, cumin, and the two syrups.
Looks like it's going to be kind of sticky.
Yeah, I think these are going to be very sticky.
But that's just the filling, and then it's surrounded by dough.
Here are the pistachios. And, interestingly enough, cumin.
Yeah. Another great thing that Arim has done, he's talked to traditional cooks, people who are still cooking in a traditional way, in order to adapt these recipes to something that may be ancient, but has certainly been handed down for a long time. And many Middle Eastern dishes today use pistachios, of course.
And honey.
Yeah, all sorts of things like this. And that's another thing, I think, keep it somewhat simple. He's researched a lot of these spices, because I don't know when they would have come in. But, for instance, the cumin. Now, we're working on one that's Old Babylonian, so it's kind of Middle Bronze Age here. And by that time, he thinks they had more of these spices. I think in the early one, we don't really put many spices in, right? I don't think it had, we had some trouble sourcing date syrup.
Right.
Well, they wouldn't, but we're using, California pistachios and dates and things, stuff that's coming from a long way away. And today we have a global economy. At the time, though, they did have long-distance trade networks. Their known world was almost being integrated, so they did have, for them global, they didn't know there was a lot of other stuff out there, but I'm always amazed at how much they could bring in and did. So I'm not too surprised that they were already using a lot of spices. Spices become extremely important later in spice trade networks because this stuff is really valuable. Right?
And this is our cardamom that we're adding.
Right, so cardamom in the dough and,
Cumin in the filling. Cardamom in the dough.
I think it's going to be an interesting flavor combination.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we've realized, of course, very quickly that the honey actually goes in the dough. That was going to make it more workable. And that means we've got too much in our fill. It's going to be a little bit soupy because we have honey and date syrup in there, or agave. Now we put the honey in, and we're going to divide the dough up. I think it's set into 12 equal parts into balls, I think. So let's try that.
So we're going to do half at a time.
Okay. Yeah, let's try to make 6.
Well, let's get our fancy dough knife.
Yeah. And this is presumably the way they would have done it, mixed it by hand and just rolled them into balls.
Right. And we'll need our tray.
Yeah, once we make them though.
Yeah, so that's how we.
But we're gonna have to pinch them over it.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. Yeah,
A little filling in there. And pinch it into a little ball, little dough ball there. And then say put it in there seam side down.
right.
By making, but also making a little indention here, right?
Yeah, I think that's
Makes a whole
okay.
pistachio in that dent. I thought the indent was for the.
Well, yeah, it is, but you can probably just press
Yeah, that.
one down in. But
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think your method is much better. When I tried this now, I don't have enough to wrap around it. Well, but this is kind of part of the experiment. You know, I've seen Arim do this. He's been on Swedish television, you know, showing how he works with these things, and because he lives in Sweden now. And he's really good at it. But, you know, we're just trying to follow a recipe, and I find out that I'm not very good at this. Another thing I really like about his book is the photography of the final results.
These, the photos you did of this bun especially.
So ours aren't as pretty as his, but okay. We've only got 9 at the moment, but that's fine. Put them in and bake them for 15 minutes or so, right?
About 18, yeah.
Yep. Right. And now we're going to be talking about some barley that we're going to use for the early Sumerian lunch.
That's, what do we say? 250 grams of pearl barley and 1.5 liters of water boiling.
All right. So now it says to mix in ghee, right?
Yes,
Which
it's
is
unsalted or clarified ghee. Yep.
Okay, and I guess that enhances the flavor, presumably.
I would imagine.
Barley could be, I don't know, a bit boring. So, and if you didn't have a lot of seasonings, at least today we would find it somewhat boring. But adding this and then the toppings that we're going to add is what's going to make it into the real Sumerian lunch, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know they ate a lot of barley. They grew a lot of barley. It was their primary grain. It's a salt-tolerant grain to an extent, and their soils were rather salty. So, in the south of Mesopotamia in particular, they grew a heck of a lot of barley, and they made beer out of it all the time. This was an important thing.
That's an important
And
one.
Arim has also tried to make some of their ancient beer, and has had quite a bit of success with it. But the main thing here then is to add a little bit of these 3, right? Apples, dates, and bacon. Now, in the Middle East today, of course, there's a lot of cultures that don't eat pork, but when we go really far back, we find a lot of pig bones in the record, and it does look like they were. Some of them are butchered, some were eaten. They're kind of garbage disposals. You know, the pigs would apparently wander the streets and just eat the trash that had been thrown out, because pigs will eat anything. And maybe later on, that's why people wouldn't eat them, because they saw them as something that was not clean. But adding some bacon to this makes sense. I don't know how they would have cooked it if they did in the past. Maybe they wouldn't have made what we think of as bacon, but we'd have a little pork in there. Dates, that they were very common. They grew.
Right.
And apples, we have good evidence of them. Early dynastic, we even found some kind of dried apple that may have been a crab apple. I don't know if you eat those.
Smaller, tartar.
Yeah, and a dried apple that had preserves, surprisingly. So, and we see apple leaves in their design sometimes, so they were growing apples. Probably not the kind that we have here, but still, we do what we can. It's still going to be quite hot, I think, because we just now.
Yeah, so it is going to be very hot yet.
It's like, I'm going to get a little bit of everything, I'm trying to get a little bit of everything in there. Maybe I'm going to overwhelm with the apple, but. They combine really well. I mean, if you just eat barley, like I said, I think I would find it boring. But it has a fairly rich flavor. A little bit of salt, a little bit of tang,
Yeah,
a little sweet.
Sweet, a little tangy, a little salty.
Now, Billy, but we're in such an early period, it's hard to know a lot of this stuff. So I've tried to help him with what we can on what we know from ancient record. But in the Uruk period, and this is at the end of the Uruk, we start getting writing, but throughout much of the Uruk, we didn't have it. But we do get the bevel rim bowl, and he wants to think that maybe these Sumerian workers ate this kind of thing maybe in the middle of the day. This is why it's the Sumerian lunch.
That's why the lunch.
They were paid in grain apparently, but it could have been, I mean, it was rations. So it could have been, okay, here's your meal, now keep working, and maybe they gave him something afterwards as well. But we're going to have to wait about 2,000 years for our dessert. Because this is,
right.
This was made, well,
this was,
the recipe is supposed to be
from 3,500.
Yeah, 1,500, 2,000 years, something like that, before what our dessert is supposed to have been. So we'll wait a while.
Oh yeah, they look good. Really good. I think they look good. We should let them set for a bit.
Yeah, too hot right now. But, should be a good compliment to our lunch. I mean, they certainly had sheep that they were milking, and I guess making butter out of. It's another thing I didn't really think about. The clarified, it gives it a more buttery flavor.
It definitely
I don't
intensifies
know
it.
what they would have had, but it's certainly good. I like our lunch. I think
very
I'm going to
good.
like this too, but it is too hot.
Yeah, they need to cool a bit.
A few minutes later.
And we didn't do too badly. I mean, we did put too much honey in, so we probably got...
They're going to be sticky.
Yeah, they stuck to the pan a little bit, but overall it's not bad. I think we're going to have to try them.
Right on.
Take one that's not perfect. But yeah, it smells really good. And that...
It does. Cardamom comes out in the dough.
Right, I just now tried a bit of that, and I was wondering what was that extra flavor. It's the cardamom, right? It's still quite warm.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Buttery.
And sweet, but
Mm-hmm.
a hint of something else. You know, the spice that's in there. A lot of pistachio, which I love.
Mm-hmm. And the cumin really is pronounced in that dough. I like it. But it's like a sugar cookie. Like, I mean, a shortbread cookie.
Yeah, which I also like. So it's a combination of everything that I love.
Being just butter and flour and honey, that dough is very short, and it's
And we were talking about the Sumerian lunch being more buttery because it was the clarified butter.
The clarified butter, but that tastes a lot
But
better.
to me, that was more like a hearty oatmeal that you... I think of oatmeal as a breakfast thing, but that could be a lunch.
Oh yeah, with all that topping on there, it definitely was satisfying, filling.
Right. And then if you had these after.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, very successful. I'm really glad that Arim sent me that, and I think that he and I are going to try to make some videos together sometime soon.
Nice.
Because he's going to come visit, and I might visit him in Sweden.
Very good.
Thanks for helping me with this, Jeff.
It was fun. Thank you for asking.
And it's a very different thing than I normally do, but it's related, right?
Yeah,
To the ancient world.
definitely related.
So thanks for joining us, and join us again next time on Artifactually Speaking.